What is up, everybody around the Octagon? We are back today. I am with Ryan and Son, my two gracious co-hosts. We're here to break down UFC Vancouver main card predictions. Before we get into that, there is a boatload of fight news we're also going to go through. But before we do, Son, Ryan, how are we doing, boys?
Doing well.
Great.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start off with Michael Aswell, round 1, TKOW, friend of the pod. Congrats on the big win. I was pretty pumped up to see that. But we can't really get into any new fight news before talking about Charles Do Bronx Oliveira. He just put on an absolute clinic against Mateusz Gamrot. The grappling of Gamrot was nothing. Charles Oliveira looked great on the ground. Oliveira looked great on his feet. Dominated Gamrot. Found the finish there. Ryan, I know you were texting during that fight. Anything you want to add on there? What is next for Charles Do Bronx?
Yeah, I think he was great. He got vintage Charles performance out of that one, and I think he called out the best possible fight for himself, which would be Max Holloway for the BMF belt. I'd like to see that, run that sometime in the beginning, early 2026, and we'll see what happens. But I love the call out. I think that's an exciting fight. They fought once when they were both at featherweight. Charles had that weird neck injury at the time, so he lost by TKO, but now these guys are so much more evolved in their games, and they've come such a long way in their careers. Both have held gold, and I think that's an awesome fight. So, love to see
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, Ryan. I mean, not much else to add there. Obviously, those guys have some history. I think of all of Charles's, losses. That's really one he wants to get back just because of the way it ended. So, would love to see a legit fight between both these guys, kind of in similar spots in their careers too. Like both got knocked out by Ilya, both kind of like just past their prime, still like got one foot in their prime. So very exciting. I think everybody is going to be tuning in for that. And yeah, I mean, he did great last weekend. Pretty much did whatever he wanted to in there. Striking was there, grappling was there. And it kind of just, I can't like help but think back at, what the odds were. Closer to fight time, Charles was even an underdog, if I remember correctly, by like, -5, odds, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But literally, like, it was basically a pick 'em, but I want to say Charles was a little bit of an underdog. So it was kind of crazy to see that, Gamrot kind of got all this respect out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from. He certainly wasn't on Charles' level, and we saw that on Saturday. So props to Charles, man.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the respect to Gamrot really came from kind of the short-sighted vision and people kind of being skeptical about Charles Oliveira at his age and whatnot. And I think that's where it came from. I think that's where the betting odds came from. Hats off to Gamrot at least for taking the fight on 11 days' notice. I know he came to the States, had like a 10-day camp, then flew out to Brazil. Gave the people a fight to watch. So hats off to Gamrot. He's a gamer. He is the gamer. That's his nickname. So hats off there. But moving on. Also, shout out to Figgy. That was a big win for him. I don't think I really want to spend too much time talking about that, but big upset win there over Montel Jackson. But moving on to some big fight news that we had, and we'll start chronologically here. UFC 322, MSG, Shawn Brady versus Michael Morales. And Son, the question I'll pose to you is this too soon for Michael Morales to have a number one contenders fight?
That honestly, that's a very fair question. I do think it's a little bit. I think that division's kind of just in a fucking blender right now. There's so many people, fighting, wanting to fight, not wanting to fight each other. It's kind of just a mess. So I'm glad they actually got Shawn Brady to sign up on a fight that's, whether it be a title fight or not. I think we just want to see all those guys fight. That, top 10 in that division, so exciting, so awesome. But Morales he's what, ranked number 6? I don't think it's that crazy. I do think it was quick. But we've seen this before, right? I mean, he's beating legit guys. He's putting on super good performances. He's showing absolutely zero signs of slowing down. So was it quick? Yes. Was it too early? I don't think so. I think he's going to be fully prepared to go in there and take Shawn Brady on. Now, whether he beats him or not, this is a completely different question. Shawn Brady's nasty. But yeah, very exciting. It's kind of two opposites going at each other. a heavy grappler that's also shorter, and then a heavy striker that's also like tall and lengthy. So it's going to be two complete opposites in that cage, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, no, definitely a really good test for both guys. I think Sean Brady is really coming for that on Michael Morales' record. I think it's going to be a good one. In terms of it being too soon, I agree with you, Son. I don't think it is. Michael Morales is ranked 6 right now, like you said, and he just walked through Gilbert Burns in a round. We didn't really get to see much out of that fight in terms of the grappling, so I am excited to see how he deals with that wrestling pressure from Sean Brady.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because it seemed like Michael Morales was kind of like a step behind Sean Brady the whole time, climbing the rankings. Like he was a fight behind him as far as Gilbert Burns went. Then you have Sean Brady picking up another win over Leon Edwards, who was ranked at the top of the division. Now he finds himself fighting back against number 6, Michael Morales. So, yeah, no, I don't think it's too soon either. It's just kind of weird timing-wise how now Sean Brady already did the climb. Now he's looking back before reaching the pinnacle of that climb. But I guess when you have this many killers at the top of this division, that's what you're going to have to do in order to get that title shot. So let's see if Sean Brady can get the win there. And if he does, he's about undeniable. I don't see how you don't give it to him, even though you do have the likes of Ian Gary fighting Bilal Muhammad. I understand that. Carlos Prates, Leon Edwards, the winner of that's not going to get it. So it's really Ian Gary that's the big, like, the wrench in there for Sean Brady. But you have anything you want to add there, Ryan?
I was going to say, yeah, all credit in the world to Sean Brady for taking this. I think he could have sat and waited, being the number 1 contender. It puts you in that spot, but respect to him for taking this fight, risking that number 1 contender spot. And also I think he knows too that with Islam and JDM already booked for that welterweight strap, he's going to be waiting in the wings for a while to see a title shot, especially with all these killers coming up. I don't necessarily think he has anything to prove in terms of getting a title shot. I think it's good for him, especially if he goes out and gets a win. He will be undeniable at this point, and it's a great place to set him up for the next shot at the welterweight strap. So all credit in the world to Sean Brady.
Agreed there. Now, moving on, UFC 323, there was a boatload of fight news there, and we'll start off with Brandon Moreno versus Tatsuro Tyra. That was announced, a big one there. Ryan, I know you're a massive Tatsuro Tyra guy. My questions for you will be, does the winner of this fight guarantee themselves the next title shot following Josh Van, and who is that winner?
It's hard to say, right? I mean, Tatsuro Tyra looked phenomenal in his last fight, completely walked through the Korean that he fought, Jitsoon Park. I hope I got that correct, but it's something like that. And he took no damage, so I was hoping for a quick turnaround, and that's exactly what he did. So I like to see that out of guys, who especially come out unscathed and are looking to bounce back for a title shot. He's also very young. I think he's only like 25 years old now at this point. And we just have to see how this plays out. Obviously, I think if Van goes out and beats Pantoja's done everything to get an immediate title rematch. But obviously, if Pantoja wins, then you could place either of those guys. Their first fight, the Moreno Pantoja fight for the belt, was absolutely sick. It came down to a split decision. I'd arguably say it was his hardest fight. Getting the belt was his hardest fight. So in terms of who wins the Tatsuro Tyra Brandon Moreno fight, I'm not entirely sure, man. And they have very similar styles in terms of grappling. I think the striking is definitely there for Brandon Moreno. It's going to be a tough one for Tatsuro Tyra, but I'll look into it more as the fight gets over, and I'll have a deciding winner. But right now, I think it's too close to call.
Yeah, I agree there. We definitely will have to see how it plays out. But just in my mind, just looking at the rankings and checking it out, I mean, if we see Pantoja win, I think it would be interesting to see Moreno fight him. But I don't know if we see Pantoja and Tatsuro Tyra win. Sorry, I can definitely see that being for the belt next. The next fight for that strap. But if Van wins or if Moreno wins, I think that definitely kind of throws a wrench in everything. Because if Pantoja is out of the championship, they might want to put him against Brandon Moreno and then see who fights for that belt. And then vice versa with the other guys as well. So just kind of one of those situations where there's kind of a lot of guys up there. And Pantoja again is another guy that's just beat everyone. Van's really the only guy he hasn't, and so is Tyra. So those are really the only two challengers that I see them. If they win, it's just like if Tyra wins, it's just automatic to the title. But yeah, interesting fight for sure.
Yeah, I guess the only guy in there that I'm not mentioning is Manel Cape because he could also throw a wrench in there and challenge for that belt. I know it was talked about before he pulled out in that fight recently, in which was stepped in by Joshua Van, actually, who we will talk about a little bit later. But back to the Brandon Moreno Tatsuro Tyra fight. It is interesting because I do think Brandon Moreno's wrestling can kind of counter Tatsuro Tyra's, and I do favor Brandon Moreno on the feet a little bit. I see it kind of going similar-ish to that fight with Brandon Royval for Tatsuro Tyra. So I will give my early nod to Brandon Moreno there, but very interesting fight. Very excited to see it. Very excited to see Tatsuro Tyra against some legit top competition again and see what he can do. But moving on, there was also a light heavyweight bout announced between Jan Blachowicz, ranked 4th, and Bogdan Guskov, ranked 11th. Two big boys will slug it out. And Sam, my question will be for you. What kind of implications does this fight have?
I think it would be it's tough because it's kind of like, Jan Blachowicz is a guy that's pretty consistent. His last fight against gosh, why am I blanking right now?
Carlos Olberg.
Yeah, Olberg was one that I thought he had a very good chance of winning, and he just kind of didn't show up as much as I'd expect him to. So if we get that same Jan Blachowicz in there with Bogdan Guskov, then we can see him get steamrolled again. And then it does absolutely nothing, as far as throwing a wrench. But if we see Jan Blachowicz win, that's kind of an interesting situation because he's kind of become a gatekeeper of sorts in that division. We saw him with Adesanya, we saw him with Alex Pereira, and he, and we saw him with Olberg again. Yeah, what's going on here, Zach? You having some technical difficulties?
Yeah, for some reason my cameras doesn't seem to be showing up. You can hear me though, right?
Yeah, no, we got you. But yeah, I think the big complication here is if Blachowicz wins. If that happens, then I don't know if we move him up, if we keep him where he's at, if he's just kind of like the gatekeeper guy now. If we give him another fight and then eventually work him back up in the rankings, he's also getting older. So I think if Guskov wins, I think it's kind of what I think I would say the UFC wants to happen. Because then we toss another guy up there, maybe make him fight Ankalaev for another title shot, something like that. But as of now, Jan Blachowicz is, just jumped over Khalil Roundtree after that Yuri Prochazka loss. So it's kind of, if Jan wins, there's going to be kind of like a weird stalemate up in that top 3, top 4. But if Guskov wins, then, I mean, we got a new guy up there in the top 5. That can fight anybody. Khalil Roundtree probably would be an interesting fight there. So I think anybody but Jan winning would kind of keep the timeline intact.
Yeah, no, son, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I kind of just look at this fight as sort of like a passing of the torch, right? You have the younger guy in Bogdan Guskov making his way up the rankings, hasn't lost yet. The UFC has been putting on clinics, submissions, KOs, the whole 9. And then in terms of Jan, he's pushing 40. He's about to be 41 years old, maybe, I think. And I really now, I think, like you said it best, it's almost looking as like a gatekeeper to that division. Obviously, if he goes out and beats Bogdan Guskov, maybe he has like one more shot at a title run. But outside of that, I think Bogdan Guskov winning is good for the timeline for the light heavyweight division. And we'll see. We could start throwing him in there for title shot contention. One more fight, like you said, Khalil Roundtree, Yuri Prochazka, maybe Carlos Olberg, maybe, depending on, the outcome of his next fight, which is probably going to be for a title. So we'll see. I mean, sky's the limit for Bogdan Guskov. I'm excited to see that fight, and we'll see who gets it done in there.
Yeah, so it seems like, unfortunately, I will have to remain headless for a little while. I don't know what exactly is going on here. But, no head for this guy. It's been a little bit of a dry run. But beside the point, fellas, back to fights. Jan Blachowicz, Bogdan Guskov. It's an interesting one here because, well, it does seem like the perfect positioning for a passing of the torch, and I do agree there. Bogdan Guskov has been rising. He's been on an absolute tear ever since his debut loss to Volkan Ozdemir. But you look at who he's beaten, and you're like Nikita Krylov, Billy Elikana, Ryan Spann, Zach Pagua. I don't know, man. Like, those guys are nowhere near the level of Jan Blachowicz. And Nikita Krylov, I mean, he got put out cold by Dominic Reyes, his fight prior to fighting Bogdan Guskov. I know he had never been knocked out prior to Dominic Reyes, but that's now 2 knockouts in a row. So I don't know if I'm completely 100% sold there on Bogdan Guskov yet. I think Jan Blachowicz is a very good test there to see exactly where Bogdan Guskov is at. because Jan Blachowicz is extremely durable. I know he got subbed in that fight to Glover Teixeira, but outside of that, it's hard to really remember Jan Blachowicz getting finished. He's a very durable fighter, so curious to see exactly where Bogdan Guskov is at, and I'm happy with the matchmaking there. But moving on, another fight for UFC 323. We have the retirement fight, so it seems, for Henry Cejudo taking on Payton Talbott, who is a guy that I know he has coached before and has trained. So interesting matchmaking there between the old veteran wrestling Cejudo opposing the young striker in Payton Talbott. And Ryan, my question for you will be, we saw Payton Talbott's grappling deficiencies when he fought Reinier Barcelos, but it looked pretty short up in his last fight. Do you think Cejudo will be able to out-grapple Talbott to a win?
Yeah, I think if he can get a hold of him, I think it'd be pretty obvious given his fight against Reinier Barcelos and how badly he got steamrolled in terms of the wrestling and the grappling department in that fight. But, I mean, Payton Talbott definitely showed some improvements in his last fight when he fought, that other bantamweight. I'm blanking on the name here.
Felipe Lima?
Yeah, Felipe Lima. Felipe Lima, I thought, was going to go out and do pretty much the same thing, but he definitely showed some improvements, Payton Talbott, that is, in terms of wrestling defense, grappling defense, and was able to keep that fight on the feet the entire time. I think this one's definitely going to be a little trickier, but obviously there's either something that Henry Cejudo saw or Payton Talbott saw, given the fact they have trained together before. So I think both guys feel like this is a very winnable matchup for them. I do give a slight lean towards Henry Cejudo, even though he is getting older in age. But, the wrestling is no joke, an Olympic caliber wrestler. I think this should be a pretty close fight. But if Henry Cejudo can get his hands on Payton Talbott, I think it's going to be a long 15 minutes for the kid. So we'll see. Excited for that one as well. It's always fun to see guys like Payton Talbott, those highly ranked prospects, coming in and putting on a show in front of a crowd. So definitely one to look forward to.
Yeah, I have a very tough time putting my finger on who's going to win this fight. It's very much a toss-up for me. I'm sure the odds are going to be skewed in one of the two guys' favor. It's weird because you can't really tell what level Cejudo's at. Because we look at his wrestling, obviously it's Henry Cejudo is fighting. I mean, his wrestling is, second to none. But there he was second to one to Merab. He got tossed around like a rag doll on that. But then again, it's Merab. Like, does that kind of like mean that Merab's just a really good wrestler, like we all know he is, or is Cejudo just kind of falling off a little bit? And then his past performances before that fight even. It's kind of just tough to figure out how good Henry Cejudo is right now. I think since he came back from retirement, he's kind of just been on this streak of not putting on the best performances, but at the same time fighting some of the best guys in that division. So tough to say, how Payton Talbott lines up against any of the guys that Cejudo's been across the cage from. But definitely be interesting, and probably whoever's the favorite is who I'm going to lean towards. Will say I do want Cejudo to win this fight. I'm not the biggest fan of Talbot.
Yeah, I also am going to slightly lean Cejudo here. Looking back on Cejudo's prior fights, like you mentioned, the fight against Merab, I'll even take it a step back. His comeback against Aljamain Sterling was a fight that we were at there, Ryan, at the Prudential Center in Newark, and it was a close split decision loss there after coming back off a long layoff against the champ, who multiple defenses there for Aljamain Sterling. People talk about him being one of the best bantamweights to step foot on planet Earth. So that's like nothing really to laugh about as far as that performance went. Then he fights Merab, wins round 1. Then just the cardio, Merab just takes over rounds 2 and 3. And Merab does that to absolutely everyone. And then Song Yadong, it looked like Cejudo lost a step, especially in that Song Yadong fight. But if the old veteran in Reinier Barcelos was able to just out-grapple Payton Talbott and just wrestle him at will, I know Payton Talbott did show improvement. Is it going to be enough improvement to keep the former Olympic champion Henry Cejudo off you? I don't know. I'm curious to see. It's going to be the test. Did Father Time catch up yet is really the question for me, because if Henry Cejudo is anywhere near the former champion Henry Cejudo, he would run through this version of Payton Talbott. But yeah, that's where my mind's at as far as this one goes. And the camera is back. All right, back to some fights here, boys. UFC 323. The co-main, Alexandre Pantoja, will be taking on Joshua Van Now, Son, Pantoja has ran through a list of opponents that seems like a grocery list at this point, man. Do you think Van can withstand the grappling that is Alexandre Pantoja and really present him a legitimate threat here?
Dude, I don't think so. As much as I love Joshua Van, I mean, that's easily one of my favorite fighters right now, a guy who I will refuse to miss a fight probably for the next 5 to 10 years of his career. Just a dude that you love watching when he's out in the octagon. As much as I, have, admiration for him as a fighter, it's very, very tough to beat Pantoja, especially, I might be misspeaking here because we really haven't seen Josh Van's wrestling yet because he's just been standing up and banging. But Pantoja is going to force him into that deep water. And, I mean, Pantoja's as deep as it gets, man. It's like an anaconda pulling you into the river. It's very tough to stop. It's very tough to get out of his grip, dude. I mean, he
Yo.
The worst thing is I was about to say he gets on your back and just doesn't get off. I mean, it's just like as bad as it gets. It's jiu-jitsu, dude. It's jiu-jitsu. He's going to get that neck, get that back. And
pause, my boy. Oh, man.
It's a pause. Yeah, pause. But yeah, it's tough for a guy that leans so heavily into the striking as Josh Van does. Pantoja is very, very quick, uses those leg kicks to set up that grappling maneuver. And gets him in the clinch and then just has his way. So I am excited for this fight for 2 reasons. One, if Josh Van loses, it's not that big of a deal because he's beat literally everybody. He could have another fight, maybe even take some time off and come back directly for a title fight, depending on how it goes. And at the same time, we're going to see how good his, takedown defense is, which is something that we haven't seen at all, and see how good his grappling is, and definitely get some sick striking exchanges in there. And one way or another, regardless of who wins, I'm definitely leaning Pantoja. But regardless of who wins, I think everybody's going to be happy. I mean, Pantoja's just going to stamp another name, on his kill list and move on and probably defend a billion more times until he decides to retire. So very, very exciting fight. I can't wait for this one. But I definitely have Pantoja winning this one, probably by submission. It just looks like the easiest way to win that fight right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to take Pantoja in this one, just lining it up. But I mean, credit to Van. Brandon Royval on 2 weeks' notice. They set the record for significant strikes in their fight. It's a 3-rounder, and Van's output's ridiculous. So I expect that record to be broken now that he's about to see 5 rounds with a guy who's as durable as Pantoja. That guy can take massive punishment and then, like you said, Son, get his way into the clinch, find your back, have his way with you. In terms of the wrestling defense, I think Van's showcased it in a few of his fights. His fight with Ray Cerrulla, pretty heavy grappler for the flyweight division, was able to stuff about 17 takedowns in that one. So he's pretty competent when it comes to avoiding the ground. And then in his last fight, I think he showed off a pretty sick skill case against Bruno Silva in his fight before the Royval fight, where I think it was in round 2 where Bruno Silva shot a takedown. Joshua Van sprawled, held onto the back of the head in a tie clinch, and then just kneed Bruno Silva in the face and knocked him down. So the guy's pretty creative when it comes to defending takedowns, and I am excited to see how Pantoja deals with that, or if Van can even sprawl and land something similar in that fight. I think that's definitely a game changer to look out for, as well as with the constant forward pressure and all those strikes. I think right now he has the record for significant strikes per minute in the UFC landed. So definitely going to be a firefight. I think Pantoja is going to take a lot of damage, but I do still see him weathering the storm and probably defending his belt for the 5th or 6th time at this point.
Yeah, I will say I would be very happy. It would be like a bittersweet moment. Like I'd be pretty stoked to see Josh Van grab that belt. I don't think he has any haters in the MMA, fans. And he just keeps putting on good shows. And I think if Pantoja loses, I could see even a retirement going on. And he's like, hey, got to pass the torch. I lost, somebody had to do it. He's already an older guy. But we'll have to see when that happens. But I would be stoked to see Josh Van win that belt. It would be awesome. And just have, basically everybody that Pantoja beat already come up and try and fight him. I think that'd be pretty dope.
Yeah. Another thing to note is, sorry, Zach, I'm just going to say one more thing, is Joshua Van's 23 years old, so career is still very young and blossoming, and this won't be the last time you probably see this guy fight for a title. So
yeah, definitely not. And also shout out Josh Van for putting that Around the Octagon reel on his Instagram story. So respect.
Yeah,
that.
dude, Josh
Respect
Van knows my
guys.
face, bro. That's awesome.
Yeah, fuck yeah. But back to this fight, Pantoja, the grappling. I think it would be too much for Josh Van, to be quite honest with you. I think I saw something that like Josh Van started grappling like a few years prior to being in the UFC. Pantoja started grappling when like Josh Van was born.
Yeah.
Like there's fucking levels, man. I just don't think you can just jump that gap this quickly, because Pantoja's striking is still damn good too. So I don't know, man. This is a tough ask for Josh Van, but the sky's the limit for the kid. He has a lot of time even after this fight, and hell, man, he hits like a fucking truck. So let's see. He could catch Pantoja. Pantoja does get hit, but he doesn't get put out. So that's the tough part there. And can he outpoint him to a decision? I don't know, because I don't think the gas tank's going to be a problem for Joshua Van. So maybe. Who knows? That'll be a fun fight, but I definitely lean Pantoja early. And the last bit of fight news we have is Merab Dvalishvili will be taking on Petr Yan, main eventing UFC 323, aiming to become the first champion to defend his belt 4 times in a calendar year. Ryan, Petr Yan has said that his right hand was compromised in their first fight. He only threw it 3 or 4 times throughout the entire fight, and that is his most prominent weapon. Do you put much stake into that injury, and do you see this fight really going any different than their prior one?
Yes and no. In terms of just losing something so significant as your right hand and not being able to throw strikes with your right hand in a fight, especially for 25 minutes, it's very tough to deal with. But at the same time, we're talking about a fight in which Merab shot 49 takedowns. So right hand or not, that's still going to happen in that fight regardless. And I think the outcome's most likely going to be the same. I expect more damage landed on the Yan side, but after 2 rounds, it seems like with anyone who gets into the cage of Merab after 2.5, 3 rounds, it's just the Merab show at that point in terms of just offensive wrestling, chain grappling, getting you to the ground. I don't think he's going to hurt Merab on the feet or Yan on the feet the same way he was able to do Sandhagen in round 2 of their last fight. I expect it to be a little bit closer, but I think the outcome's still going to be the same. Also, I like to see records broken, so I am rooting for Merab in this one to set a new record, something that we might never see again. So, yeah, credit to Merab. I'm happy that he was able to get his wish and get his 4th title defense booked for this calendar year, and I'm hoping he goes out there and sets history in December. So, good on him.
Yeah, very difficult to ever bet against Merab, I think, in any circumstance. The one thing that sticks out to me the most about how he fights and his activity is that activity is not a problem at all. I think his biggest, issue with being able to defend his title 4 times in a calendar year is Dana White allowing him to. Because he, before his title fights, he'll be sparring, 4, 5, 6 rounds in the back before he even hops out there and walks out, without busting a sweat. So this guy just doesn't see fights as, a tiring thing at all. So I don't think anybody's, expecting Merab to lose here. And I think everybody's going to be on his side. I certainly am hoping he gets that title defense. But Yan is definitely a tough cookie, man. It's going to be an interesting fight. He might win a round or 2 and maybe even have a shot of, maybe knocking him down once or twice. So we'll see. He's definitely a power puncher, but Yan's another guy, doesn't really get crazy amount of finishes, but we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, I got a little bit of a chuckle out of calling him a tough cookie. I don't know why. I think it's funny us calling Petr Yan a tough cookie. Like, I think he was listening, he'd definitely appreciate that. He'd be like, "Oh man, thanks Santiago. I am a tough cookie." But kind of moving on from that a little bit. Petr Yan, yes, he is one tough cookie, but Merab Dvalishvili is Merab. I think we've spent so much fucking time talking about Merab that I'm just like, I don't even know what to say about this guy anymore. He's incredible. I expect him to win. I'd like to see him reach those 4 title defenses. So all hail to Merab Dvalishvili. But let's move on to UFC Vancouver. Kicking us off, we have a lightweight bout between the Canadian Kyle Nelson coming in at -105, opposing Matt Steamroller Frevola at minus 115. This seems to be a little bit more of a favorable matchup for Matt Steamroller Frevola compared to some of his previous. It seems like a matchup where both guys do like going forward, so I do expect some violence here. Now, Son, will you be siding with Matt Steamroller Frevola or the Canadian Kyle Nelson?
Yeah, I'm going with Matt Frevola here. I think just some simple math. Kyle Nelson has 6 losses. Frevola has 5, and 5 is less than 6. So, he's obviously a better fighter. But seriously, I don't know. It's as you say. I mean, I think it's a pretty favorable matchup. We were talking about a little bit before. They kind of fight similar. They're similar sizes too. And I just like Matt Frevola more. Plus, he's a underdog here. I'm just not putting too much thought into it. I think the crowd's going to be behind Matt. That's another plus going for him. And I think he's just going to be able to take that momentum and take his cornrows to get his hand raised at the end of that bout. Don't know if I see a finish here though, but we'll see. I've been surprised before by that man.
I'm going the same way as you, Son. I have Frevola in this fight. They don't call him Steamroller for no reason. Fun fact about him is he's never fought in the Apex throughout his UFC career. It's always in front of crowds, and this guy always puts on a show. And I just think grappling-wise, wrestling-wise, he's a little bit better there. And then in terms of the striking, same thing, just a little bit better. I give the notch to him in both categories. And I do believe that he should get this one out in rounds 1 or 2. I mean, this guy's fights rarely see a judge's scorecard. He's either knocking you out or getting knocked out. And I don't think Nelson's the type of fighter that's going to go through, walk down Matt Frevola and put him out relatively quickly. The only where this gets tricky for Matt Frevola is if this does see the later rounds, over 2.5 in the round 3. But like I said, I believe Matt Frevola is going to go in there, steamroll him, as his nickname suggests, and get a pretty electric finish for this crowd in Vancouver to kick off the main card.
Yeah, I wonder what that Vancouver crowd's going to be like when the American Matt Steamroller Frevola comes in there and just rolls over their boy. But any jokes there aside, I wasn't even joking because I do have Matt Frevola here winning this fight, and I do have him winning either by knockout or submission because, Ryan, like you touched on, I do think Frevola does have the slight grappling advantage here over Kyle Nelson. I do think he is the better striker opposed to Kyle Nelson, and it's going to be entertaining to see two presences that both like to go forward in the octagon and seeing which one does end up going forward and which one does end up going down. But this should be a fun one, and I do favor Matt Frevola here in essentially what is a toss-up. Now, moving on, we have a bantamweight bout between Cody Gibson, who is the slight favorite, minus 160 over Arichi Long. And honestly, boys, I'm not too high on either of these guys. Cody Gibson should hold the grappling upside. Arichi Long should hold the striking upside here. Ryan, that classic battle of grappler versus striker, which side are you going on?
Yeah, like you said, Zach, I'm not too high on either guy either. Cody Gibson fought his way back into the UFC, was on the veteran side of the Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor series there, and fought Brad Katono, lost the UD decision to him in what was an absolute war, a very fun fight. But his career has gone similar to what it was when he was first in the UFC, which is just pretty much up and down, loses 2 in a row, wins 2 in a row, awful loss by sub to Damon Blackshear in his last fight. Meanwhile, Arichi Lang, same thing, kind of an up and down career, just slightly younger at 32 compared to Cody Gibson's 38. And I want to go with the underdog and Arichi Lang in this fight. I just can't trust Cody Gibson to get it done, especially if you put money on the guy. So I'll just take my chances and take the underdog in this one in Arichi Lang. I think the striking and the speed is going to be a little bit too much here, especially coming in 6 years younger. So give me Arichi Lang. It's probably going to be a snooze fest. Expect the decision. Not much more to be said about this one.
Yeah, I'm with you here, Ryan. I'm going Arichi Lang here. I think a few reasons stick out to me. One, he's got a sick name, the Mongolia Marauder. I'm a big proponent of style points. If you got a cool mustache or you got, a cool nickname, I'm going to side with you. Another reason I just refuse to pick Cody Gibson is he beat Mondo once on a fluke flying knee, which was bullshit, by the way, on the Tough Show. And then also, went on to lose to Brad Katono and Damon Blackshear. Just 2 losses that just did not age well. So I cannot side with him for those reasons. I will be going Arichi Long and hoping that my money rides on that underdog and brings me the riches.
Hey, man, Damon Blackshear's had some fun wins, and in that fight, I will say Cody Gibson was having a lot of success early in that fight. Round 1 went out, and he was fucking touching up Damon Blackshear, where it was like, wow, I was betting on Damon Blackshear in that fight, and I was not feeling too good right there. And while Cody Gibson isn't a world beater by any means, he has found a way to come back in the UFC and pick up a few wins since losing to Brad Katona. He is very durable. He doesn't get knocked out. I don't know if Arichi Long will be able to put him out here. I do think Cody Gibson will be able to take down Arichi Long, hold him down, win minutes there. I'm going to side with Cody Gibson here. My heart's a little bit more on Cody Gibson's side. I'd like to see the vet pick up another win here, but I could definitely see the upside here with the striking on Arichi Long and the speed and the youth and all that, but I will side with Cody Gibson. And now, moving on, we have a women's flyweight bout between a former title challenger in Manon Fiorot, who is coming in at -240, opposing the Canadian Jasmine Jasudavicius at +195. +195 seems like a little bit of a steep line here, don't you think, Son? I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is a steep line, which I hate. I'm doing this, but I'm picking my third underdog in a row here in Jasmine Jasudavicius. My furniture just started floating. But yeah, I'm siding with her. I think she's just a dog. I mean, I've been loving her work recently. She's been having a lot of success this year, the year prior, and even the years prior. And Fiorot, she did do pretty well against Shevchenko. That was a great fight. But I don't know, something about Jasmine. So she just had a lot more. Fuck, dude, that name just throws me off. I'm completely
Jasudavicius.
Yeah, whatever the fuck. I'm not Canadian. I can't say that. So yeah, I mean, I just don't think I mean, obviously Fiorot's good, but it's tough to bet against Jasmine, especially with the success she's had and her consistency. And really not too much of a difference other than the reach. She does have a little bit of a reach advantage. So if she can just outstrike Fiorot and maybe even bring that grappling in for some submission threats, I can definitely see Jasmine winning this fight.
Yeah, so I like how you touched on how Jasmine has just kind of been bullying pretty much everyone that stepped in the octagon in front of her. But this weekend, I just don't think she'll be able to do that the same way that she has with past opponents. Man, and Fiorot, it's pretty much a pretty sizable presence in that octagon, especially at 125, definitely bigger, definitely a lot bigger, like thicker, I should say. So I think that's going to pose a really big challenge for her in terms of having her try to dictate this fight. I just don't see it going the way that she wants it to. And I'm not too confident in how she'll deal with that pressure. If she surprises me, good on her. But I have Fiorot picking up a decision win here, just based off pure physicality alone.
Yeah, Manon Fiorot was on an absolute tear going into her title fight, which we saw her drop, and I kind of expected to pick up right where she left off before dropping that title fight. Her boxing, very good. She's very strong, very big, physical, like Jasmine Jasudavicius is. Sorry, I took a sip of water, wrong pipe a little bit, but like Ryan touched on, I think the physicality of Manon Fiorot would be able to counter that of Jasmine Jasudavicius. I think she'll be able to outstrike Jasmine on the feet and kind of coast her way to a win there. So I will side with Manon Fiorot, but Sam, 3 underdogs in a row, man. And there's some more opportunities for underdogs to come. So I'm curious to see where you go. But
my problem is I haven't looked at the odds. So I'm kind of just looking at these fighters. I'm like, this is who I think is going to win. And then you're like, yeah, well, they're actually a plus 300 underdog. I'm like, fuck. Well, there goes everything that I've thought about the past hour,
Well, brother, moving on, we have Marlon Chito Vera at +115, taking on Ayman Zahabi at -135. Zahabi coming off that win over Jose Aldo, one of which he weathered an early storm, showed great cardio for his age. Ayman Zahabi is extremely durable, and in which he was able to pick up that split decision win over Jose Aldo. I don't forget if that was last year. It was on that last Canada card, I believe, the one in which Bilal Muhammad lost to Jack Della Maddalena. But on the flip side of that, Marlon Chito Vera hasn't really had the most favorable run as of recent either. So, Son, I'll let you kick this one off since you're on the run of underdogs here. Will you be siding with Marlon Chito Vera?
Dude, fuck yeah, I am. Like, this Zahabi dude's fucking 40, bro. Like, come on. Who's even fighting even like too? Like, obviously he has some very nice wins with Jose Aldo. And then, kind of just decisioned some guys that you shouldn't be decisioning if you really want to be breaking into those rankings at a strong pace. And honestly, yeah, like Chito Vera has had a tough stretch of fights. But look at who he's fighting, man. I mean, he's fighting the best of the best. Obviously he had Sean O'Malley, he had Davidson, he had Sandhagen. So really just the best guys that he possibly could have been fighting. And I just don't see him dropping 4 in a row. I think that's very difficult. And I think this is, a time for Chito to get one back, especially against a 37-year-old who might be losing that speed a little bit. And Chito is as durable as we know he is. I don't see him getting knocked out in this fight. So I'm going Chito here with another fucking underdog for this card. And I'm just going to start praying for the best after these bets go out.
Don't worry, Shawn. I am right there with you. I'm also going with Marlon Vera. It just comes down to, like you touched on, one, I don't see Marlon Vera losing 3 in a row. I think he knows at this point, rather than go for, taking his time, I think Marlon Vera is going to come out here and be relatively more aggressive than we've seen in his last couple of fights. He's the type of guy that usually just sits there, waits for his moments, finds those shots. Did it with Dominic Cruz in the 4th round. He was probably down 3-1 in the 4th round and then comes out, or 2-1, comes out and then finds that head kick. Same thing with the O'Malley fight. He was getting pieced up all around and then eventually lands that nasty body shot to the liver that did put O'Malley down. And it just comes down to finding it. But on the flip side of that, it's Amian Zahabi just really hasn't impressed me so much with the run that he's on so far. I mean, Jose Aldo was like 45 years old when they fought. And Jose Aldo, if you don't remember, in the 3rd round of that fight, was able to find a nasty soccer kick. Credit to Zahabi. I don't know how he was able to survive that, but comes in, gets an arguable decision against Jose Aldo. A lot of people thought he didn't win that fight. Same thing with this fight against Javid Basharat. A lot of people didn't think he won that fight, but the judges snuck it out and scored it for him. And it just comes down to that, right? You have one guy who, in the past, has been a pretty nasty finisher, has picked his shots well, is very durable, can withstand a lot of punishment, takes a lot to give it. And then you have Zahabi, who's just on this run of what seems to be miracles by judges. So I'm going with the underdog here, Marlon Vera. I think he puts an end to this and gets himself back into the win column.
Miracle by judges. I like that, Ryan. And I will be siding with Ayman Zahabi via miracle by judges in this one. It seems like he gets these judges' scorecards here in Canada. He's back in front of the home crowd here in Canada. I see a fight between him and Chito Vera, 2 very durable guys going to a decision. And they're 2 guys that do seem to start out slow. You touched on Chito Vera kind of being very patient to a fault, to be honest. He starts off fights consistently dropping early rounds. Ayman Zahabi doesn't really step on the gas pedal right away either. So there's going to be some close rounds. Maybe there's a little bit of indecisiveness in there. And if they are close here, I will lean with Ayman Zahabi. I do think he looked decent in that fight against Jose Aldo, especially after that first round, rounds 2 and 3, went out there. That soccer kick, how was that even legal, by the way, too? Like, I don't know. Seemed like he was definitely grounded, but that was pretty that was pretty wild.
Awesome.
But yeah. I don't know how he survived that. So yeah, I will go Ayman Zahabi here, and we shall move on to the co-main event of the evening. We have a welterweight bout between the active Kevin Holland taking on the hometown kid here in Mike Malott. Mike Malott has had some ups and downs in his UFC career it was ups until he got magnied, as people like to say. He got magnied, and then it's been up ever since that moment, ever since that loss to Neil Magny. On the flip side here, you have Kevin Holland, who was just on an absolute tear in the welterweight division up until his last loss just a few months ago. So Kevin Holland looking to rebound here. Ryan, do you see Kevin Holland rebounding here against Mike Malott?
Yeah, man, it's so hard just because whenever Kevin Holland steps into an octagon, you simply do not know what you're going to get. But then you look at the list of opponents that he's lost to, and it's just like there's almost no shame in any of them besides his last bout to Daniel Rodriguez. I thought that was a very winnable fight for Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland we saw just wasn't the same Kevin Holland we came to see in his last 2 fights against Gunnar Nelson and Vicente Luque. But I like welterweight division, he's definitely a sizable matchup there. He's found his place better than middleweight, where he has losses to Reinier de Ridder, Roman Dolidze, a couple of just absolute killers in that division. But then again, when you place money on Kevin Holland, it's like spinning a roulette wheel. But I love roulette, so I'm going Kevin Holland here. Mike Malott, very vicious, very good guy. He times his shots well, a very slick striker, just KO'd Charles Radke with a pretty nasty shot in his last fight. It was just the cardio aspect of it still concerns me a little bit because he hasn't been put in any dangerous situations since that Neil Magny fight. And I thought we all thought, knew he was well on his way to winning that Neil Magny fight. And then within the last 30 seconds of that fight, he kind of just gave it up. I don't see that happening, but I do see Kevin Holland coasting out to a comfortable decision. I think he's too slick everywhere. The guy, you get him to the ground, Kevin Holland can throw some wild shit up off of his back. Even if he goes offensive with it, slick darces, guillotine chokes, and then the striking there too, 81-inch reach, has about a 9-inch reach or 8-inch reach advantage on Mike Malott. Just a very difficult guy to plan for. And I see him posing a real threat up in Canada to Mike Malott this weekend. So I'm taking my chances. Like I said before, you never know what you're going to see out of Kevin Holland in an octagon, but I think he bounces back and gets this win against an up-and-coming prospect in Mike Malott.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, and like we've mentioned a million times, Kevin Holland is a roller coaster. But we all know that when a roller coaster goes down, the only way for it to go is right back up. And that last loss definitely put him down. So I see a miraculous Kevin Holland win here, probably by finish. You never know what you're going to get from this guy. But Kevin Holland it's weird. Like you gotta buy low and sell high with this guy. He lost his last fight, and it's kind of just how the cycle of his career goes. Is he loses a fight that he should win, and then he wins a fight that he might not, should not win. So I'm going Kevin Holland here. I think he also poses a hell of a lot of threats. Mallett's more of a striking guy. Kevin Holland definitely has that submission threat, which I think he's definitely better versed in than Mike Malott or Malott is. But what I did find out, speaking of Mike Malott, his brother plays for the NHL, and he got in a fight the other day. I thought that was pretty sweet. So I see a clip of that. So cheers to those boys. But unfortunately, I think this is a lost fight this weekend for the Malott boys. I got Kevin Holland.
Yeah, dude, Kevin Holland reminds me of like the Rocket game in DraftKings when I'm trying to time it, where I'm like, okay, like, what's going to happen here? And then I stay on the rocket where I'm like, oh, he's going to be Daniel Rodriguez. Let me ride this rocket. And just fucking crashes in your face and you lose absolutely everything you believed in as far as the guy goes. And that's where I'm at. My rocket with Kevin Holland is crashed. It's going to crash again here. I'm going Mike Malott. I think Mike Malott can, first off, I think he's strong enough where he can offensively grapple Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's submission game is always a threat, but if you're able to go on top, have fucking good control time on top, stay smart, stay strong. Reinier de Ridder, I know Reinier de Ridder and Mike Malott are not similar tiers of grappling, but Reinier de Ridder was not scared to go and grapple with Kevin Holland, took him down, controlled him, found the submission. Not saying Mike Malott is going to do that, but Kevin Holland can be submitted, so I think that is there. Mike Malott, if he's able to get inside of Kevin Holland can get clipped. We saw it in the Daniel Rodriguez fight. Mike Malott is a slick striker. He does hit hard, so I think he can clip Kevin Holland. What he can't do is sit at range with Kevin Holland and try to exchange strikes with him at range. If he does do that, that is a game that he's going to lose with Kevin Holland. But it seems like Mike Malott does like to take the path of most resistance in a lot of his fights, and he doesn't like to make things easy on himself. So, hell, he might just sit there at range with Kevin Holland for 15 minutes and try to slug one out. But he is extremely tough. He is extremely durable. So, I will side with the Canadian here in his home crowd in Mike Malott. And now moving on to the main event, we have Reinier de Ridder at -210 taking on Brendan Allen, who is stepping in for Fluffy Hernandez, which is just a damn shame because if Fluffy was fighting here against RDR, I would be so pumped. I know we all would be, but Brendan Allen is a very serviceable replacement here for Reinier de Ridder. Reinier de Ridder coming off the win over Robert Whittaker is definitely putting himself in line for a crack at that middleweight championship if he is able to secure a win here over Brendan Allen. Now, Son, my question for you will be, do you think Reinier de Ridder will pick up the win here over Brendan Allen?
I think so. I think RDR is a very tough guy to run a camp for, to train for, even if you do have an extended period of time to do so. And obviously Brendan Allen does not. He's hopping in for Fluffy here in this case. So I think he's just such an awkward fighter. You never really know. Sometimes he's really good on striking, and other times he kind of just wants to take you down to the ground. So very just awkward guy to try and plan for, and an impossible guy to find a training partner to emulate. So I'm going RDR here. And in different circumstances, I think Brendan Allen definitely has a way better chance of picking this one up, especially he's a lot younger. He's got really good wins in the UFC. He's been on kind of a tear right now. Definitely a well-deserved fill-in spot for him. But I think he's just biting off a little bit more than he can chew. Obviously, it's an opportunity he can't really turn down at this point in his career. But I think RDR is just way too ready. His submission threats and his grappling is going to be absolutely on point, especially if he was preparing for Fluffy. So I can see an RDR finish here by submission. In the earlier rounds even, especially if he's trying to be aggressive and just put this guy out and put on a show, because he will have to after that. Who is it that is next for the
Imavov?
Yeah, Imavov, because obviously he did very, very well against Kyle. Very impressive. So RDR is going to have to pull something very slick out in order to get himself a title shot, and I think he knows this. Especially against a fill-in guy like that. So he's going to have to do something pretty spectacular this weekend to get that title shot, and I fully see it happen. So I got RDR by submission here.
Yeah, Son, I love the play as well. RDR by submission seems pretty. It seems like you should probably get some pretty good value out of that. And I like what you touched on in terms of Brendan Allen, where you really do just need like a full training camp to prepare for a guy who fights as stylistically weird and goofy as RDR does. And who's just also 6'4", crazy reach, really big, awkwardly shaped guy that can seem to now just apparently do it all. Didn't look the best in that Gerald Meerschaert fight, got dropped in that one. People kind of wrote him off. Me, myself, was one of them. But since then, the guy's just went on an absolute tear, looking for his 5th win in the UFC. All of his fights seem to just go in his favor. And I think in a different world where Brendan Allen has an 8-week training camp, this fight might be closer, but I think RDR should be pretty comfortable in this one, given that he's such a hard matchup stylistically to plan for. And I was really looking forward to that Anthony Hernandez fight. Unfortunate, hopefully Hernandez recovers from whatever injury he got, and we could see him in there soon, because an 8-fight win streak at middleweight and not seeing a belt already is insane enough. So looking forward to this one. I think RDR gets it done by either ground and pound TKO or submission, and he puts a staple on that division. And maybe we'll see him fight Hamzat. Maybe it's Nasruddin Imavov. Do not know at this point.
Yeah, boys, I'm going to make this one a clean sweep. And at the end of the day, I just have to trust RDR until I'm given a reason not to. He's just an absolute gamer, man. He finds a way to win rounds. He finds a way to win fights. We saw it against Robert Whittaker. We saw him get hurt. We saw the way in which he was able to recover. Those knees are just an absolute motherfucker for everyone to deal with. The grappling is insane. His physicality, it's just his presence is felt in the octagon. And I got to side with him until I am given a reason not to, like I'd said earlier. But his one problem is he does leave his chin up there and lets himself get hit. He leaves opportunities to get hit. We've seen that multiple times, like in the Gerald Meerschaert fight, like in the Robert Whittaker fight. And Brendan Allen can put paws on people. We saw what he did in his last fight when he just put the paws on Marvin Vettori. So Brendan Allen can scrap. RDR can get hit. So that's something to watch out there for. But I am siding with RDR. But with all that being said, fellas, that is bringing us to the end here. Do either of you have something you want to add before we get on out of here?
No, I lost the belt though. If you guys are on our Instagram, I did lose our belt for the graphics we made. I think I might be back after this weekend though. I was pretty close to being perfect. So it's gone, but it's back. Call me Alex Pereira, man.
Everyone still listening, thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week. Let's get after it, boys. Come on.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Come on.
All right.